Did you know that over 60% of small landlords in California could lose money in 2026 because of new rental laws, some of which just passed quietly without major headlines? These changes aren't just tweaks or technicalities. They're major legal shifts that could flip your investment upside down. If you thought owning rental property in California was a safe passive income stream, you might want to think again. Some landlords are already finding themselves trapped in legal red tape, unable to raise rent, evict problem tenants, or even decide who lives in their own property. Imagine this: your tenant stops paying rent, and not only can you not evict them, but you might be forced to pay their legal fees. Sounds unbelievable, right? But it's real and it's already law. In this video, we're uncovering 10 shocking California landlord laws that could ruin your rental business in 2026, unless you know how to protect yourself. Stay with us. Number 1, rent control just got stricter, even for newer properties. In 2026, California expanded its rent control laws, and this one's going to hit a lot of landlords hard, especially those who thought their newer properties were safe. Under the new rules, any building constructed before January 1st, 2011 now falls under statewide rent caps. That's a full 5-year shift forward from the previous 2005 cutoff. Translation: if you bought or built your rental anytime before 2011, you can't raise the rent freely anymore. This means your rental income is officially tied to a strict annual limit, currently around 5% plus inflation, with a hard cap that changes yearly. Even if the market value of your unit has skyrocketed or your expenses have gone up, you're still locked in. And if you raise rent beyond the legal limit, you could face hefty fines, lawsuits, or even be forced to roll back the rent and refund tenants. Now here's where it gets even trickier. Local rent control laws still apply. Cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Berkeley often have stricter rules than the state, so you could be dealing with multiple layers of regulation and not even realize it until it's too late. So what can you do? First, check the construction year of your property. If it falls under this new cutoff, start adjusting your financial plans now. Second, consult your local city or county website to understand any overlapping rent ordinances. And finally, build a buffer. If your rent hikes are capped, your emergency fund needs to grow. This law alone could crush your cash flow if you're not prepared. But don't worry, we've got 9 more laws coming up that are just as shocking and potentially even more dangerous to your bottom line. Number 2, you can't say no without a reason anymore. Starting in 2026, landlords in California can no longer refuse to renew a tenant's lease without an approved legal reason. And no, simply wanting your property back isn't enough anymore. Under the newly expanded just cause eviction laws, every non-renewal must be backed by a specific documented justification that's legally recognized by the state. Let's break it down. Previously, many landlords operated on month-to-month leases or allowed fixed-term leases to expire without renewing, but now that option is shrinking. You must provide a just cause like non-payment of rent, breach of lease, criminal activity, or owner move-in. And even then, the rules are tight and the burden of proof is on you, the landlord. Here's the kicker: even wanting to move a family member in isn't always enough. You'll need to provide sworn statements, give the tenant proper notice, and in some cases even pay relocation fees. Yes, you might have to pay your tenant to leave your property. This law was designed to curb unfair evictions, but for landlords, it means you're losing control over who lives in your own unit. Let's say your tenant has been consistently late on rent or causing tension in the building, but hasn't technically violated the lease. Under this law, you might be stuck with them for another year. So what's the move? Keep detailed records of tenant behavior. Everything from late payments to neighbor complaints. And if you're planning to end a tenny, consult a local attorney or housing authority before taking any steps. A single misstep could land you in court, or worse, on the hook for tenant damages. And trust us, this is just getting started. Let's talk about a law that affects your property inside and out, even if you've never had a single complaint. Number 3, surprise inspections, even without complaints. Here's a twist that's catching landlords completely off guard. As of 2026, cities and counties across California now have the power to conduct surprise inspections on your rental property, even if no one has complained. Under the new Habitability Enforcement Act, local officials can randomly select rental units for proactive inspections. That means you could get a notice or a knock on the door saying inspectors are coming to check for everything from mold, plumbing issues, pest activity, to fire safety compliance. And if they find anything, you're on the hook for immediate repairs, fines, or in extreme cases, even temporary tenant relocation at your expense. What's even more concerning is that these inspections don't require tenant approval or landlord consent. Tenants will be notified, but as long as they agree, you can't stop the inspection from happening. Some cities like San Jose and Oakland are already piloting these surprise inspections with plans to roll them out statewide. Think your property's in good shape. Think again. Some of the most common violations include loose outlets, minor roof leaks, water heater placement, and even peeling paint in older buildings. Things that may seem small to you can be red flags to an inspector, and every violation adds up. So, what should you do? First, treat your property like it's being inspected at all times. Perform your own quarterly walkthroughs. Better yet, hire a certified home inspector once a year to catch hidden issues early. Fix problems fast before the city finds them for you. This new law flips the game for landlords who've always operated quietly. It's no longer enough to avoid complaints. You now need to prove compliance proactively. And if you're not ready, a surprise inspection could become a financial nightmare. Number 4, you might have to pay for your tenant's lawyer. Yes, you read that right. Under California's new Tenant Right to Counsel program, which takes full effect in 2026, low-income tenants now have the right to free legal representation in eviction cases. Sounds fair, right? But here's the twist. The funding for this program is coming in part from new landlord fees and penalties. In other words, you might end up paying for the lawyer who's fighting against you. This new law is aimed at reducing homelessness and protecting vulnerable renters, but for landlords it creates a huge imbalance in eviction court. If your tenant qualifies as low income, the state will assign them an attorney, often experienced and backed by tenant advocacy groups. Meanwhile, you're expected to cover your own legal costs and possibly even fund the system that's helping them stay in your unit. The result, evictions are now slower, more expensive, and way more complicated. Judges are taking longer to make decisions, tenants are fighting back with professional help, and procedural errors, no matter how small, can get your entire case thrown out. And here's where it gets dangerous. If you don't follow every single step of the process to the letter, you could not only lose the eviction case, but also face damages, back rent rollbacks, and legal fees. So what's the smart move? First, avoid court at all costs. Use mediation services. Communicate clearly and always try to resolve issues before they escalate. Second, if eviction becomes necessary, hire an attorney who specializes in landlord-tenant law. Don't try to DIY it anymore. The stakes are just too high now. This law shifts the legal playing field, and if you're not ready, you could end up funding both sides of the fight. Number 5, eviction freezes during emergencies. Even if you're not getting paid, what if your tenant stops paying rent during a wildfire, flood, or health crisis? You might assume you can still start the eviction process, right? Wrong. Under new 2026 legislation, California has expanded emergency protections that freeze all evictions during declared state or local emergencies, no matter the reason. That means even if your tenant hasn't paid rent in months or has violated the lease, you could be legally blocked from taking any action to remove them until the emergency is officially lifted. And let's be honest, some emergencies drag on for months, even years, especially with today's climate and housing instability. What's worse, there's no financial safety net built into the law for small landlords. You're still responsible for the mortgage, taxes, insurance, and maintenance while receiving no rent and having no legal ability to evict. Some landlords are calling this a forced housing subsidy, and it's not far off. These freezes can be triggered by wildfires, earthquakes, heat waves, pandemics, or even local housing declarations. That means even if your area isn't directly affected, you could still be caught in a legal standstill. So what can you do about it? First, consider rental loss insurance. It's not perfect, but some policies cover government-mandated occupancy disruptions. Second, build a strong emergency fund that can cover at least 3 to 6 months of property expenses. And third, screen your tenants carefully. A responsible tenant is more likely to keep paying even during hard times. This law is a game-changer. It turns a temporary crisis into a long-term financial drain, and landlords who aren't prepared could find themselves stuck in a no-income limbo. We pour hours into researching and breaking down these complex laws to keep you ahead. So, if you found this helpful, drop a comment with your thoughts or questions below. And hey, subscribing takes just one click, but it means the world to us and helps us keep creating more content like this. Number 6, you now owe interest on security deposits. Think that security deposits sitting in your account is just a safety net in case your tenant causes damage. Think again. Starting in 2026, California landlords are now required to pay interest on all held security deposits, and the longer you hold it, the more you owe. This new rule applies to all residential leases statewide, not just in cities that previously had local interest laws, like San Francisco or Berkeley. The rate is determined annually by the state and must be calculated from the day you receive the deposit until the day you return it. If you fail to pay the interest or miscalculate it, you could face penalties, tenant lawsuits, or be forced to pay double the deposit back. So let's say you've been holding a $2,500 deposit for 2 years. Depending on the interest rate set by the state, you could owe hundreds in interest, and the tenant can legally demand it even if they caused minor damage or broke the lease early. Here's where landlords often get tripped up. Most don't track this interest, and many use that deposit money for emergency repairs or cash flow gaps. But under the new law, that's risky business. You're now treated like a financial institution holding someone else's money. What should you do? First, set up a separate interest-bearing account specifically for security deposits. Don't mix it with your main funds. Second, track the deposit date and amount down to the cent. When the lease ends, calculate and show proof of the interest owed. Make it part of your move-out statement. It's no longer optional. It's the law. That just in case money now comes with strings attached, and mishandling it could cost you far more than a broken window ever would. Number 7. Tenants can now deduct more for repairs without your permission. In 2026, California expanded tenant rights when it comes to handling property repairs. And this one could quietly drain your rental income if you're not careful. Under the updated repair and deduct law, tenants now have more freedom to fix issues themselves and subtract the cost from their rent, even without your direct approval in some cases. Previously, tenants had to follow strict steps, notify you in writing, wait a reasonable amount of time, and get permission before deducting repair costs. But now for certain urgent issues like plumbing, electrical, heating, or safety hazards, tenants can take action sooner and deduct up to 2 months' worth of rent to cover the cost. Let that sink in. 2 full months of rent could vanish because you didn't fix a leaking pipe fast enough. And with rising repair costs, even minor issues can turn into major deductions if you're not staying ahead. The law was designed to speed up habitability improvements, especially in lower income areas where repairs often go ignored. But for landlords, it creates a new layer of risk, especially if you're managing multiple properties or working with unreliable contractors. So, what should you do to stay protected? First, respond to all repair requests within 24 to 48 hours, even if it's just to acknowledge receipt. Second, prioritize urgent repairs immediately. Don't wait until it's convenient. Finally, keep written records of all communication, work orders, invoices, and tenant updates. You're no longer just expected to fix things. You're expected to fix them fast or face direct financial consequences. Ignoring a repair now doesn't just cost you a tenant's trust, it could cost you 2 months of income overnight. Number 8, hidden cameras. That could get you sued. Now, think having a doorbell cam or a security camera in common areas makes your property safer. In theory, yes. But starting in 2026, California landlords must now fully disclose all surveillance devices on the property or risk serious legal consequences. Under the new tenant privacy protection law, any undisclosed recording, audio or video can be considered a violation of tenant privacy, even in shared spaces. This includes security cameras in hallways, entryways, laundry rooms, parking lots, and even smart home devices like motion sensors or doorbell cameras that record audio. And if you didn't list these devices in the lease or forgot to update your disclosure, you could face lawsuits, fines, or even criminal charges for illegal surveillance. And don't even think about placing cameras near windows, patios, or anywhere that might accidentally capture inside a tenant's unit. The law is crystal clear. Tenants have the right to know when, where, and how they're being recorded, and anything less is a breach of trust and legality. So, how do you protect yourself? Start by doing a full audit of every recording device on your property. Then update your lease agreements to clearly state the location, purpose, and type of surveillance being used. If you've added cameras after the lease started, issue a written notice and get a signed acknowledgement from the tenant. Also remember, audio recording is much more restricted than video. If your devices record sound, that could be a bigger issue than you think. Landlords often install cameras for security. But with these new laws, what was once a safety feature could now become a legal landmine. In 2026, tenant privacy is king. And if you're not fully transparent, you're putting your entire rental business at risk. Number 9, you can't control who lives there anymore. In 2026, California redefined what it means to be a family in rental housing. And it's a big shift for landlords. Under the new inclusive household law, tenants now have the legal right to live with extended family members, domestic partners, and even non-blood relatives or close friends as long as they function as a family unit. So what does that mean for you? It means that even if your lease says only immediate family allowed, you can no longer enforce it. A tenant could move in with an aunt, cousin, step-sibling, or long-term friend, and you can't stop them as long as the total number of occupants doesn't exceed local limits. Trying to block this, it could land you in hot water for discrimination. The law was created to reflect modern living situations and support multi-generational households during California's housing crisis. But for landlords, it creates a serious gray area when it comes to screening, lease enforcement, and property wear and tear. You may have approved one person, but suddenly there are 3 or 4 people living in the unit, and legally you may not be able to do much about it. So how do you protect your property? Instead of focusing on relationships, focus on occupancy limits. Your lease should clearly state how many people can live in the unit, not who they are to each other. Also, conduct routine inspections with proper notice and stay on top of noise complaints or misuse of shared areas. It's no longer about who's allowed to live there, it's about how many people are legally permitted in the space. If you don't adjust your lease agreements now, you could be left without any say over who's living in your rental. Number 10, you're now responsible for climate resilience upgrades. Here's a law that's going to hit your wallet, whether you like it or not. Starting in 2026, California's new Climate Resilient Housing Act now requires landlords to upgrade their properties to meet new environmental and disaster preparedness standards. That means installing everything from energy-efficient appliances to fire-resistant landscaping, heat pumps, better insulation, and even backup power systems in some areas. If you own property in wildfire zones, flood-prone regions, or areas with extreme heat risk, which is now most of California, you're legally required to meet these new standards by certain deadlines or face hefty fines, delayed permits, and even rental bans. This isn't a suggestion, it's the law. The goal is to make rental housing safer and more energy efficient. But for landlords, it means spending thousands of dollars on upgrades that weren't even on your radar a year ago. Some landlords are reporting retrofit costs of $10,000 to $30,000 per unit, depending on the location and condition of the building. And here's the real kicker. You can't pass most of these costs directly onto your tenants. While limited rent increases may be allowed for certain upgrades, rent control laws and local ordinances still apply. That means you're footing most of the bill. So what can you do? Start by getting an energy audit and hazard assessment for each property you own. Look into state rebates, grants, and tax credits, because there are some financial incentives available if you act early. Also consider phasing upgrades over time rather than waiting until the deadline when costs and contractor demand will spike. This new law is a wake-up call. Being a landlord in California now means being part of the climate solution. And if you're not ready, your property and your profits could be left behind. So there you have it. 10 powerful new landlord laws in California that could shake up your entire investment strategy in 2026. From surprise inspections and forced climate upgrades to eviction freezes and legal aid for tenants, it's clear being a landlord in California isn't what it used to be. These aren't just small updates or technical adjustments. They're game-changing shifts in how rental property is regulated, managed, and enforced. If you're not paying attention, these laws could quietly drain your cash flow, limit your rights, and even put you at risk of lawsuits or government penalties. But here's the good news. With the right preparation, you can stay ahead of the curve. Start by reviewing your lease agreements. Build stronger tenant screening systems. Set aside emergency funds for upgrades and legal situations. Most importantly, stay educated because the laws will only keep evolving. Which of these new laws surprised you the most? Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear your experience and what changes you're making for 2026. And if this video helped you, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more landlord updates. Remember, knowledge is your best protection. The landlords who survive and thrive in this new legal landscape will be the ones who take action now, not after it's too late. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.